Welcome back. Tonight we travel to ancient China, to a place you may have heard of all your life, yet rarely imagined in detail. The Great Wall, a symbol of endurance, ambition, and human will, but also a monument built on the backs of countless laborers, whose names history rarely preserved. As you settle into a comfortable position, let your breathing become slow and gentle. Feel your mind ease as we drift into a different world. A world where stone met sky, where dust hung constantly in the air, and where men labored from dawn until nightfall, driven by an empire that demanded everything they had to give. This is not the story of the wall as a tourist attraction, or the sweeping legendary image often shown in paintings. This is the quieter version, the slower version, the human version. Together we'll explore what it may have felt like to live and work as a laborer during the Qin dynasty. For now, allow your mind to settle into the rhythm of ancient labor, steady, repetitive, like breathing. And imagine yourself on the edge of a frontier, surrounded by open sky, stiff winds, and the ceaseless work of building a wall that seemed to stretch beyond the horizon. Let us begin. Imagine yourself waking before sunrise. The air around you is cold, a dry, cutting kind of cold that settles deep into your clothing and lingers in your bones. The light is still dim, the horizon only beginning to brighten with a thin gray glow. You rise from a simple bedding mat laid across hard earth. There is little softness in your world, just practicality and survival. Around you, other laborers stir slowly. Some cough, their breaths creating pale clouds in the early morning air. Others simply sit for a moment, gathering the energy they will need for another long day. The camp itself is plain, rows of makeshift shelters constructed from rough timber and packed soil. These temporary quarters were never meant for comfort. They exist solely to house the bodies required to raise the wall. Your first task is simple but essential: to eat. Breakfast is plain, often no more than a thin porridge ladled into crude bowls. The flavor is mild, almost non-existent, but it provides the minimal strength needed to begin the day's work. You eat it slowly, letting the warmth settle into your chest, a small comfort against the cold that clings to your skin. Soon the overseers move through the camp. Their steps are steady and purposeful. They do not shout unless necessary. Their presence alone is a reminder enough of the expectations here. The Qin dynasty valued order above all else. Every movement, every task, every breath had its place in the larger design of the empire. With tools in hand, simple, heavy, and worn from repeated use, you begin the walk toward the construction site. The ground beneath your feet is uneven, dotted with stones and packed earth. Ahead of you, the outline of the wall rises like a vast sleeping creature, its unfinished segments stretching into the distance. Some parts are nothing more than mounds of tamped earth. Others have already begun to take shape, with layers of stone stacked upon each other in slow progression. The work begins with lifting. Large stones, roughly shaped and heavy, must be moved into place. There are no advanced pulleys here, no iron cranes to ease the burden. Just human strength combined with simple wooden frames and rope. Your hands ache as they grip the coarse surface of the stone. Dust clings to your fingers, settling into the grooves of your skin, and the texture of the rock is cool and unyielding. You and several others coordinate your efforts, leaning together, lifting as one. The stone rises slowly, inch by inch, carried to its intended position. Then, with careful guidance, it is lowered into place, joining the growing line of the wall. The rhythm continues. Lift, carry, place. Lift, carry, place. As the sun climbs, the cold fades, replaced by a dry heat that settles over everything. The dust becomes thicker in the air, stirred into constant motion by the footsteps of hundreds of workers. Breathing becomes slightly more difficult. Not enough to alarm, but enough that each inhale feels just a bit heavier than usual. You become accustomed to the taste of dust on your tongue, the faint grittiness that lingers no matter how often you swallow. By midday, fatigue settles across your muscles in a slow, steady wave. Your back feels tight from bending, your shoulders sore from lifting. Even your fingers feel tired, their joints stiff from the repeated strain. Still, you continue. There is no pause long enough to truly rest. Just a brief moment to drink water, cool but with the faint earthy taste of clay vessels, and then the work resumes. The overseers pace quietly along the construction line. They rarely intervene unless someone falls behind or collapses. Most workers know the consequences of slowing down, so they move at a steady, practiced pace, conserving energy where possible, exerting it where necessary. You grow accustomed to the sounds around you. The dull thud of stone meeting stone, the soft crunch of footsteps on hard earth, the low murmurs of tired voices and the constant sigh of wind rolling across the frontier landscape. This wind never seems to stop. It brings with it a faint whistle as it slips between the gaps of unfinished masonry, weaving a quiet song that accompanies the workers throughout the day. In the afternoon, shadows stretch long across the ground. The sun lowers slightly, offering a momentary relief from its earlier intensity. But the work remains the same, steady, repetitive, demanding. You grip the same tools again and again, feeling their weight become a familiar extension of your own body. The wooden handle is smooth from countless hands before yours. It carries the memory of work that never ends, work that continues long after any single laborer has left the site, whether by reassignment, exhaustion, or something more final. As evening approaches, the temperature begins to drop once more. The coolness brushes against your sweat-damp skin, sending a faint shiver through you. This shift in temperature is a small signal that the day is ending, though not immediately. There is always a little more to do. A few more stones to move, a few more footprints to press into the dust. Finally, as the light fades and dusk settles across the landscape, the overseers call the workers back to camp. Your body feels heavier now, similar to the stones you've carried all day, yet there's also a strange calmness that comes with routine. You know this rhythm well. It repeats itself day after day, like a long, droning lullaby shaped by the Empire's vast ambitions. Back at the camp, dinner is simple and unadorned. You eat in quiet, listening to the soft murmurs of other laborers, sharing reflections, or sitting silently, lost in their own thoughts. A few huddle near small fires, warming their hands, watching the flames flicker against the twilight. And when you finally lie down on your mat once more, the sky above you wide and dimly lit by distant stars, there is a moment of stillness, a moment where the wind eases, the dust settles, and your mind drifts gently towards sleep. This is the life of a Great Wall laborer under the Qin dynasty, steady, demanding, and filled with a quiet, enduring humanity. If you found this experience meaningful, consider subscribing for more stories like this. Let's continue. As you transition from the world of the laborers, let your breathing slow once more. Imagine the same landscape, the same sky, but instead of standing beside the workers, lift your perspective gently, as though rising above the long stretches of stone and earth. Rise above the dust, above the harsh winds, and drift slowly toward the center of power that defined their lives. Now we turn our attention to the man whose ambition shaped the entire era, a figure both feared and admired, Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. Take a moment to picture him not as a dramatic figure of conquest and fury, but as a distant presence, quiet, disciplined, methodical, an emperor who rarely showed his emotions, who valued order as though it were a sacred principle, and who believed deeply that unity was worth any cost. Let us begin his story gently from its earliest roots. Qin Shi Huang was born in 259 BCE, though at the time he was not known by the grand name we use today. He entered the world as Zheng, a prince of the kingdom of Qin, one of many competing states during a long era of warfare and shifting alliances known as the Warring States period. Imagine the palace where he grew up, high walls, shadowed corridors, and officials who moved with measured purpose. Conversations took place in soft tones, always mindful of politics and perception. The young prince watched, listened, and learned in silence. His childhood was shaped by uncertainty, for the political world around him was anything but stable. Rival kingdoms battled endlessly for land and influence. Even within Qin itself, court factions whispered and maneuvered. each hoping to guide the direction of the kingdom through the young prince. When his father died prematurely, the boy, just 13, became king. Too young to rule alone, he relied on ministers and regents who made decisions in his name. And though he did not yet wield full power, he observed everything with a calm, steady gaze. He saw how authority worked. He noticed how people shifted their loyalties when it benefited them. He quietly absorbed the lessons of politics. These were early hints of the ruler he would one day become. As Zheng grew older, he gradually took the reins of government into his own hands. He moved with a kind of deliberate confidence, removing those who stood in his way and elevating those who supported his vision. At the heart of his rule was a philosophy known as legalism. Legalism prized discipline, obedience, and strict enforcement of laws. It believed that people behaved best when they had clear rules and clear consequences. To modern ears, it may seem severe, but within the context of the warring states where constant conflict demanded efficiency, it held a certain logic. Imagine Zheng's court at this time. Long halls lined with bamboo scrolls, each containing laws, decrees, and detailed instructions. Officials worked quietly, sorting information, issuing orders, and recording even the smallest matters. Everything was measured, everything was regulated. This orderly system spread from the palace into every corner of Qin society. Slowly, methodically, Zheng strengthened his kingdom, and then he began to conquer. He didn't rush into war with blazing speeches or theatrical displays. Instead, his campaigns unfolded with steady, relentless pressure. One state fell, then another. Like stones added one by one to a great structure, each conquest expanded his reach and shaped the foundation of something unprecedented. By 221 BCE, the wars were over. Zheng had unified the lands that would become China. He declared himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. With unity achieved, the emperor turned his attention to creating a lasting order. He standardized weights and measures. He enforced uniformity in writing, currency, and law. He directed the construction of roads that spread like arteries across the empire. These were not glamorous tasks. They were the quiet, administrative foundations of stability, the kinds of decisions that bring structure and predictability to a vast society. It was during this time that the Great Wall, in its earliest unified form, began to take shape. Existing frontier fortifications from various states were linked and expanded, creating a massive barrier designed to protect the empire's northern borders. The emperor did not lift the stones himself, of course, but his vision guided every effort. And just as the wall rose slowly under the hands of laborers, the emperor's reforms built layer upon layer of order across the realm. As the emperor's power solidified, a quieter preoccupation began to grow within him, a desire to live forever. This was not the dramatic, feverish obsession often portrayed in stories. It was more subtle, more reflective. He had accomplished so much, unified so much, and yet he knew that time was something even he could not command. He summoned scholars, alchemists, and physicians. He sent expeditions to distant mountains and seas. He listened to tales of magical islands and mythical elixirs. Imagine him in the stillness of night, walking through silent palace corridors, considering the weight of his empire, and wondering how long he would be able to carry it. This quiet longing guided many of his later decisions. In 210 BCE, Qin Shi Huang began one of his long inspection tours across the empire. These journeys allowed him to see his domain firsthand, its mountains, valleys, rivers, and towns. The roads he had ordered to be built stretched out before him, as though the land itself were acknowledging his efforts. But during this journey, the emperor's health began to fail. His entourage carried him through remote areas, far from the centers of power. Even then, the officials around him tried to maintain the appearance of stability, concealing his condition for as long as they could. When he finally passed away, it was on a quiet stretch of road, distant from both the palace and the northern frontier where the wall continued to grow. The ministers attempted to hide his death until they could return home, going so far as to transport his body in a sealed carriage filled with fish to mask the odor, a calm but telling reminder of how fragile power could be. Even for the most determined of emperors, When the truth emerged, the Qin dynasty began to unravel. Without his steady leadership and his imposing presence, the strict legalist system he built struggled to hold the empire together. Rebellions flared, officials divided, and within just a few years, the dynasty collapsed. But his legacy, the roads, the reforms, the unified script, and of course the Great Wall, continued to shape China long after his death. As you breathe gently, let this story settle. The rise and fall of Qin Shi Huang is not the tale of a villain or a hero, but of a ruler who attempted to impose order on a vast and complex world, leaving an indelible mark that can still be felt today. As we leave behind the world of emperors and frontier laborers, let your mind drift into a quieter space. This is a place filled not with the movement of people, but with the stillness of ancient earth. Take a gentle breath and imagine yourself descending slowly into the soft, dimly lit silence beneath the ground, a place where time seems to pause, and where thousands of clay figures wait in orderly rows. This is the realm of the terracotta army. It's not a battlefield. It's not a sculpture garden. It's a vast subterranean world created with meticulous care, designed not for the living, but to accompany an emperor into eternity. Let's explore this quiet wonder, step by step, moving at a calm, steady pace. Imagine standing at the edge of an excavation pit in modern Xi'an. The air is still. There's a faint scent of earth, cool, dry, and slightly mineral. Below you stretches a vast chamber, its ceiling once supported by wooden beams that have long since collapsed. And there, beneath layers of soil, lie rows upon rows of life-size terracotta soldiers. Each one is frozen in place, silent, motionless, patient. Their expressions vary subtly, as though each figure carries a quiet personality of its own. Some stand with serene confidence, others with calm readiness, their hands poised to hold weapons that have long since decayed. They don't speak, they don't move, but they seem to observe everything around them with a steady, eternal calm. These figures were created over 2,000 years ago, during the reign of Qin Shi Huang. They were meant to guard him in death, standing sentinel over his tomb, which itself remains largely unexcavated, a silent hill of secrets still waiting beneath the earth. To create this underground army, countless artisans and workers labored with incredible precision. This wasn't a rushed job, not frantic bursts of activity, but a slow, continuous rhythm that stretched over years. Picture a workshop in the Qin era, a large open space filled with the steady scraping of clay, the gentle thump of wooden molds, and the muted conversations of craftsmen discussing techniques in soft voices. Clay was gathered from nearby deposits, damp, cool, and malleable. Workers carried it in woven baskets, setting it down near long wooden tables. Some shaped torsos using molds, pressing clay slowly and firmly inside. Others sculpted limbs, arms and legs formed with practiced motions, each one carefully smoothed by hand. The heads, however, were crafted with special attention. Artisans carved detailed features, the gentle curve of eyebrows, the quiet firmness of a soldier's jaw, the faint suggestion of emotion around the eyes. No two faces were exactly alike. The differences were subtle, small variations in expression or the shape of a nose, but they were enough to give each figure a quiet uniqueness. Once formed, the clay pieces were assembled with a deliberate patience, then fired in large kilns. The heat hardened them, leaving a faint, earthy scent lingering in the air, the scent of clay transformed by flame. Today, when you see the terracotta army, the figures appear in muted tones of clay and dust. But long ago they were covered in vibrant colors. Their armor, once painted with precise patterns, would have reflected the artistic sensibilities of the era. But these colors faded almost instantly once exposed to air during excavation. The pigments were delicate. They clung to the surface like a thin skin, preserved only by centuries of darkness and moisture. When archaeologists uncovered the figures, the sudden contact with dry air caused the paint to crack and fall away, quietly, almost sorrowfully. This mystery of lost color continues to challenge researchers, who now experiment with techniques to preserve pigments the moment they are exposed. Slowly, methods improve, and with each discovery we get a slightly clearer picture of how these soldiers once appeared. Despite decades of study, large sections of the Terracotta Army site remain untouched. This isn't because of a lack of interest, but out of caution. The emperor's tomb itself, a massive mound nearby, has never been opened. Ancient texts describe rivers of mercury flowing within, palaces filled with treasures, and mechanisms designed to deter intruders. Whether these accounts are literal or metaphorical, we simply do not yet know. Researchers hesitate to disturb the site until technology advances enough to preserve everything properly, the pigments, the artifacts, and the delicate structures hidden within. For now, the tomb remains sealed, a quiet mystery preserved beneath the earth. There are also rumors, supported by limited evidence, of additional pits around the main excavation, workshops, other formations of soldiers, perhaps even civilian figures or rare ceremonial guardians. Each unexcavated area is like a page in a book that has yet to be opened. And in time, when the right methods are perfected, the story may unfold further. The Terracotta Army is more than just a burial accompaniment. It's a symbol of the emperor's desire for control even beyond death, but it's also a testament to the skill and quiet dedication of countless workers. These artisans did not carve their names into the clay. They left no personal records, yet their craft survives them. Thousands of figures standing silently in the shadows of a vast subterranean world. As you imagine them, standing patiently in rows, waiting in darkness, consider the slow, careful hands that shaped them, the quiet determination that guided each step, and the mystery that still surrounds them even now. Let the stillness of this buried world settle around you. This calm, quiet realm offers a gentle contrast to the harsh life of the Great Wall laborer and the intense ambitions of the emperor. Let's move on with our journey.
As we rise from the silent depths of the terracotta pits, imagine yourself drifting upward, past layers of soil and rows of clay soldiers, back into the open air of Qin China. We've seen the labor camps, the emperor's journeys, and the vast underground world built for him in death. Now we travel to another realm, the palace, a place where life moved at a different pace. Slower, more refined, more structured, but also governed by the weight of ritual and the quiet demands of imperial order. Let us step gently into this world. Imagine approaching the Qin Imperial Palace. Its tall walls rise in clean geometric lines, not ornate like later dynasties, but powerful in their austerity. The gates are wide, heavily guarded, flanked by bronze fittings that gleam softly in the sun. Inside, the air is cooler, calmer, as though the very stones exhale a steady, deliberate breath. The palace complex is arranged with careful symmetry. Paths of packed earth and neat bricks lead from one hall to another, all designed to reflect order, the guiding principle of the Qin state. Servants move with controlled steps. Officials walk with scrolls tucked beneath their arms, their expressions composed. And everywhere, you sense a quiet tension, a reminder that every action within these walls matters. Life inside the palace is shaped by ritual. Each morning begins with the assembly of officials. They gather in long, columned halls where the air is cool and faintly scented with polished wood. Their fine robes rustle softly as they bow and recite prescribed greetings. Imagine the sound, a low, rhythmic murmur as dozens of voices speak in unison, their tones steady and respectful. The emperor, when present, sits on a raised platform. He doesn't need to speak often. His silence alone carries authority. Petitions are read aloud. Reports on agriculture, law, and frontier defenses are recited. The discussions move slowly, never rushed, as court scribes record every detail onto bamboo slips, which clack gently against each other. The ceremony unfolds in a strict sequence, each step codified, each gesture meaningful. Even the emperor's meals follow ritual patterns. Dishes are arranged in specific orders, served at precise times, with ingredients chosen to reflect balance and tradition. Nothing is spontaneous. Nothing is hurried. In the Qin court, rank is expressed subtly through objects, especially jade. Jade ornaments are smooth and cool to the touch, carved into discs, pendants, and ceremonial blades. Officials wear them as symbols of their station, the soft clink of jade pieces marking their movements through the halls. Robes too convey status. High-ranking members wear garments dyed in deeper shades, with heavier, more refined fabric. Lower-ranking ones wear lighter tones, their belts simpler, their sleeves narrower. The distinctions are quiet but unmistakable, a visual language understood by everyone within the palace. Within the inner court, where the emperor's family, attendants, and select officials reside, life unfolds in a hushed, controlled rhythm. Imagine walking through a courtyard paved with carefully arranged stones. Lotus plants drift gently in a nearby pond, its water reflecting the sky in muted tones, creating a serene backdrop for the slow movements of palace life. Women of the court spend their days in measured routines, reading, weaving, playing soft notes on stringed instruments, and participating in rituals honoring ancestors. Servants tend to lanterns, trim incense wicks, and prepare gentle fragrances of sandalwood or pine resin, scents chosen to maintain calm within the inner halls. While laborers on the frontier move stone after stone, officials in the palace move ideas, but with the same sense of repetition and discipline. Documents must be copied by hand, each character brushed with deliberate strokes. Records are tied into bundles and stored in wooden chests. Meetings unfold in quiet tones. Disagreements are expressed indirectly, wrapped in layers of respectful phrasing. The goal isn't persuasion by force, but alignment with the emperor's vision of order. Even justice follows ritual. Cases are reviewed in a slow, methodical fashion. Punishments are described in measured language, their severity acknowledged without graphic detail. Meals in the Qin court are expressions of cosmic harmony. Food is arranged to reflect the balance of flavors, colors, and seasonal ingredients. A typical table might include steamed grains, lightly seasoned vegetables, herb-infused broths, and small, delicate pieces of meat. Each bite is taken in silence. Conversation during meals is minimal. Throughout the year, the court observes seasonal ceremonies, offerings to ancestors, prayers for good harvests, and quiet celebrations marking solstices and equinoxes. These events bring together the emperor, his officials, and the inner court, all standing in orderly lines as incense rises in thin, curling streams. The ceremonies aim not to impress, but to affirm stability, reinforcing the idea that the empire is aligned with the rhythms of heaven and earth. As you take in this image of palace life, its calm, its order, its carefully structured pace, remember the stark contrast to the frontier. Where laborers wake in cold, dusty camps, officials sleep beneath warm canopies of silk. Where workers lift stone with raw strength, courtiers lift brushes, scrolls, and jade tokens. Where the wind bites at exposed skin, palace breezes move gently through shaded corridors. And yet, both worlds are part of the same empire, born from the same ruler's vision of unity and control. Let this contrast settle in your mind, like the closing pages of a long, ancient scroll. As we come to the end of this slow journey through the Qin dynasty, allow your mind to settle into a state of rest. You have walked beside the laborers of the Great Wall, feeling the cold mornings and the steady rhythm of their work. You have observed Qin Shi Huang, not as a legend, but as a man whose ambitions shaped an entire civilization. You descended into the underground world of the Terracotta Army, a silent realm where clay figures stand guard over ancient mysteries. In their stillness, you may have sensed a deep calm, steady and grounded. And then you wandered through the imperial court, where rituals moved like quiet tides and every detail reflected the empire's devotion to order. These four worlds fit together like the stones of the Great Wall itself. They form a long, continuous narrative of human experience, of ambition and endurance, artistry and obedience, harsh labor and refined ceremony. As you breathe gently now, perhaps you can imagine the distant sound of wind brushing across ancient stone, a reminder that history is always present, waiting quietly for us to listen. The people of the Qin dynasty lived their lives moment by moment, just as we live ours. And though their world is far away, it can still guide our thoughts inward and remind us of the comfort of the present moment. As this story comes to a close, allow your eyes to become heavy, your breathing soft and even. The world of ancient China fades slowly into the distance, its echoes growing quiet. Let the calm of the past settle over you, drawing you toward rest. If sleep comes now, let it arrive gently. And if you remain awake, simply enjoy the quiet space created by this long journey through history. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into the past. Sleep well.